Hey everyone, Sebastian here, bringing you a video where I'm predicting what will be on the May SAT. So I'm going to do 7 question examples here, giving you specific types of questions that I think will be on the May SAT based on previous tests and what I know about the SAT. I've done this before. I did it for the March test, and I think I was pretty accurate. So if you want to prepare for hard questions that'll be on the May SAT, you should look at these types of questions here. So you should be finding variables using exponents and multiplication. You'll see an example of that in a second. It's a non-linear hard type of question. You also will be doing ratio and rates questions in which you have to find a value after a tricky change in proportion. You'll see an example for that. They often have questions where you have to find the ratio of two shapes, area and volume, using the side length, or finding the side length based off of area or volume, or finding area when you have volume, right? And that's all about squaring and cubing. And then you should be able to convert across multiple units using geometry. So going from like kilograms per meter cubed to grams per centimeter cubed or something like that. Coordinate circle questions, right? Where you have to find the area or the circumference or the radius of a circle in a graph. And then triangle area from perimeter. Often they'll do it where you have a equilateral triangle. They give you one part, just the side length, and then from there you find the area or the perimeter. And then percentages with extraneous information. So now you see the 7 types. I'm going to do 1 for each. And after that, you should feel strong. And you can see how accurate I am when you take the May test, but I'm very confident that you will see some of these on the test. The equation for gravitational acceleration can be written as G equals capital G m1 times m2 all over d squared, where G is the gravitational constant, m1 and m2 are the individual masses of the objects, and d is the distance between them. What is G in terms of G, m1, m2, and d? Okay, so there are some numbers here, but they don't really count, right? Because this is just labeling, and this is just a squared. But you want to isolate G. When it says in terms of, you want to isolate, right? And you want to look at all the answer choices to get a sense of what you're looking for, right? So they all have little g, d, and m and m1 and m2. So here, let's start by moving the d squared over. So we have g equals g m1 m2 over d squared. This is a physics equation, which they like to do where they take real equations from other fields and have you solve for certain parts of it. So then we'll multiply both sides by d squared. Multiply by d squared, we're going to get g d squared equals capital G m1 m2. And then we are going to get g by itself by dividing by m1 m2. So then we're going to get capital G equals lowercase g times d squared over m1 m2. And that is B, right? So even though there are no numbers here, we can still treat the variables and constants like numbers and work with them like that. And the answer choices obviously make our life a lot easier. You can see right off the bat, after I multiply by d squared, I could eliminate A. And then there's no reason why I'd square root, so I could eliminate D. But otherwise, it's just simple math made complicated by using letters instead of numbers. But if you can analyze this carefully, then you'll be doing great. Okay, so this is NOLHB, like I said, right? And that's really finding variables in terms of others when there's like exponents and multiplication involved. Our recipe calls for 3 cups of tofu for every 4 cups of rice. If when Eduardo makes the recipe, he uses 7 cups of rice, how many cups of tofu will he need to keep the recipe's balance? So we want it to be balanced, right? We have 3 cups tofu, 4 cups rice. So we want to set up a proportion, right? So we're going to do, let's say, tofu over rice for each of them. So in the original, we have 3 over 4. And on the right side, we're going to have x, which is the tofu, over 7. So together, we're going to get 4x when we cross multiply equals 21. X equals 5.25. Okay, so it's 5.25, and then you can do 5.25 divided by 3, right? And that'll get you the answer of 5.25 divided by 3. equals 1.75. So the issue with A, right, is that you're not understanding. You're thinking they're balanced by having them be 50-50. That wouldn't work, right? The issue with B is you're just adding 4 cups of tofu to get to 7. No, that's not going to make sense. So it's going to be C, right? Because that's where you're doing the 1.75 to get it. Proportions are about multiplying and dividing, not about adding or subtracting. And D would be misreading by doing rice. So another way you could do this, right? This is the basic way, is you can find the value. The other thing you could do is just find what happens when you go from 4 cups of rice to 7, and you just do 7 divided by 4, and that gets you 1.75. If you understand the concept here, you can do that, and I'll save you, maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Square M has side lengths that are 144 times the side lengths of square N. The area of square M is G times the area of square N. What is the value of G? So we don't know the actual values of the side lengths, and that's what makes it a little tricky, but it's all about proportions, right? So if you think about a square, right, and let's say it is X, and this is X, and then you think about another square, and it is 2X and 2X, right? The proportion is that this is double, right? Because it's 2 and this is just 1. The area for this is X squared, and this would be 2X times 2X, and that would get us 4X squared. And that would make the area would be 4 times bigger, right? So what's happening when you do area from side length to area, you square the proportion, right? So side length to area equals squared. Now if you did side length to volume, you would do cubed, because there's 3 dimension and each one would be affected by the proportion, right? So it would be cubed. So now here a tricky thing is that they tell us 144 times, and 144 is a perfect square, so you might think that's already being squared, and you might square root and say 12, but this is just the side length. So if we said the first one is X, let's say this is X, and then we could say this is 144X, 144X, right? Then we would multiply, and instead of doing that, it would become 144X squared, and that will give us 20,736 X squared, compared to just X squared. If we divided it outright, the X's would cancel, so we're just left with 20,736. And that, my friends, is the change in area, right? So that's the value of G here. And that's all we have to do, right? We take the 144 and we square it. So here the question is, the density of a certain type of metal is 238 kilograms per cubic foot. A cube made of this metal is found to have a mass of 230 kilograms. To the nearest hundredth of a foot, what is the length of one edge of this sample? So we're told that it's a cube, right? That should hint that we're already talking about shapes and geometry, right? 3-dimensional geometry, right? Because a cube is a 3-dimensional object. And then the density, right, is also involved in geometry and with units, right? So the units here are kilograms per cubic foot. And a cube, right, is the same side length cubed. That's how we'd find its volume, right? So we could call all these like N. So to the nearest hundredth of a foot, what is the length of one edge of this sample? Okay, so we're going to take the 233 kilograms, right? And that's the mass that we're dealing with, and we're going to convert that into volume and then convert the volume into edge length, right? Now remember, density equals mass divided by volume, right? So here we have 238 kilograms over 1 cubic foot. So we're going to do railroad method with the 233 kilograms to find how many feet cubed we have, cubic feet we have. So it's going to be 233 kilograms, and then we're going to do 1 foot cubed, right? Because that's how much is in 238 kilograms. And we know to put the kilograms on the bottom because we want the units to cancel out and we want to be left with the cubic feet units. Okay, so now what we do is we do 233 divided by 238. And that's going to give us 233 divided by 238 gives us 0.979. And I'm a big fan of not using calculators, but even I use a calculator for this. So this is feet cubed. Now that's volume, right? And it's not asking for volume, and I think a lot of people would get thrown off and see 2.979 and they would round up to this one and find it from there, but we're not going to do that, right? Because this is the volume and it's asking for the length of one side. So we're going to do n cubed equals 0.979, and then you're going to find that n equals, right, 0.979 to the 1/3 power, or you can think about it as the cubic root of 0.979, and that gives us 9929, which when you round becomes 0.99. So that would be B, right? So it's complicated because we're dealing with density, which has two units, right? Kilograms and cubic feet. And then we have to use the mass that we're given to find the volume of this object, which is more simple once we get there. But the big trick is to remember to convert the volume into length, right? And I think that's one step where people will get thrown off. A lot of people, I think there's sort of funnels of places where people get messed up. And the first funnel is like reading the question, understanding it. A lot of people get stopped there. And then the other one is forgetting to convert the volume into length, right? They sort of bombard you with information and then are trying to overwhelm you with it. But if you stay focused and you are feeling comfortable with it, it shouldn't be too bad. So let's read the question and then we'll discuss how to do it. A circle in the xy plane has equation x plus 2 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 16. Which of the following does not lie in the circle's interior? Okay, so it almost seems like gibberish if you don't know how to do the formula for circle and coordinate plane. The standard is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, okay? Where h comma k equals the center of circle and r equals radius. So here, right, our center is going to be the opposite of positive 2, so it'll be negative 2, opposite of 5 will be positive 5, and then the square root of 16 is 4. So here we're going to have negative 2 comma 5 with a radius of 4. Okay. So the important thing to know is how far apart each point is from each individual part, right? So we're going to use distance formula, but the distance formula, you'll see we don't actually have to find the exact distance. We just need to know the magnitude in a general sense, right? So distance formula is x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared square rooted, right? This equals r. So if we square both sides, we're going to get r squared, which is up here, right? So this has to be, does not lie in the circle's interior. So basically x minus 1, or x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared has to be greater than 16, right? So when we do negative 1 comma 5, right, and our center is negative 2, that's going to have a difference of 1, so that'll be 1 squared for negative 1 comma 5. And then when we do 5, we're going to have 5, so that'll be 0. So that equals 1. So that does lie in the interior, so we'd eliminate A. Now let's try B, 0, 4. So we would do, I'll do the math, right, negative 2 minus 0 squared plus 5 minus 4 squared, and that's going to get us 2 squared, which is going to be 4, plus 1 squared is going to be 5. That's going to be 5. Again, that's not it, so we're going to eliminate B. And then you can do C, And with C, right, we're going to be 1 apart again, so it's going to be 1 squared plus, we're going to be 1 apart there, so 1 squared, and that gets us 2. So it should be D. Let's test it out after I erase a bit. So in C, we'll do -2 minus 3 squared plus 5 minus 3 squared. And that already gives us 5 here, so that's already big enough to know. So 5 squared, that gives us 25. We don't have to keep going because it's already bigger. So it will be D. Okay, so that's the process, right? The important thing is understanding this here. If you know that, then you can work from everything else. And what I like to do often is focus just on the x values and see if any of them are really far apart, and then you can start from there. We'll do that on the next one to see if we can save ourselves a little bit of time. But even if you don't do that, if you know the process, you won't spend too much time on it, right? This is considered a hard question in the circle category, right? Circle H. I categorize as it's the first one in them. So it's expected to take a bit of time, but if you know the process from the beginning, it won't be too long. So the perimeter of an equilateral triangle is 108. The height of this triangle is m root 3. What is m? So the perimeter is 103, or 108. Then side length, because they're all equal, right, we just divide it by 3. And that will get us 36. So if we imagine a triangle, right, every side is 36, 36, 36. We draw a line down for height, 60, 30. And across from 30 and across from 60, right, across from 30 is half of the 36, so it's going to be 18. And across from 60, we're going to get 18 root 3. So if it's m root 3 equals 18 root 3, m equals 18. And if you have any questions on that, let me know. But you see, you break it down bit by bit. You find the side length, you find this 30, 60, 90 triangle, and you work from there. You could use Pythagorean theorem, but really you should know 30, 60, 90 if you really want to maximize your time efficiency. Alfred bought a container of strawberries. The nutrition facts state that a serving size is 5 quarter cups and provides 60 calories and 4 grams of fiber. In addition, each serving of strawberries has 100 milligrams of vitamin C, which is 110% of the daily needed value. If P% of a person's daily need for vitamin C is provided by n servings of strawberries per day, which the following express P in terms of n. So we're told it's 5 quarter cups as a serving, and it has 60 calories and 4 grams of fiber. And then we're told that in addition, right, each strawberry has 100 milligrams of vitamin C, which is 110% of the daily needed value. So it says P% of a person's daily need. Okay, so we're talking about daily need again, right? For vitamin C is provided by n servings of strawberries. Which of the following expresses P in terms of n? So there's a couple ways you could do it. You could say n servings and give it a value. So let's say n equals 5, right? And we get 110% from each. So if we were doing this, we would just do 5 times 110. And that would give us 550. And you would look at the answer choices and see which of these gives you 550. Sometimes more than one will give it to you, and then you try a different number. But if only one gives it to you, you can go with that. So A, P equals 1.1n. That's not going to work, right? That'd be 5.5. P equals 5 times 110. That works. So it could be that one. 1.1 divided by 5? No. 110 to the x? No. So it is B. Okay, so that is the first way you can do it. The other way you can do it, knowing the answer, right, is think about it, how P in terms of n, it's saying P%, so it's 110%. We're not going to make it into a decimal like 1.1, provided by n servings. So you could think about how P is the total percent, right? And total, if you think about other equations, right, we have distance equals rate times time. Or you could think about work equals rate times time. Or you could think about total equals rate times time. So here, the time, instead of time, it's going to be servings, n. Instead of rate, it's going to be how much you get per serving, which is the P. And here, because we know, or which is the percentage. And here, because we know the percentage is 110, we just plug in 110. and we get P equals 110. So that's a more abstract way of thinking of it, but I like to plug in numbers and feel it out, right? I think a lot of people like that definite nature. All right, well, that's the video for today. I hope you found it all helpful. If you have questions on any of the ones I did, or have questions on other types of questions, let me know in the comments. I am telling you, I feel good about this, and I think you should too. So study these, come feeling strong for the May test, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.